The mess hall went silent the moment his shadow fell over my table. I did not need to look up to know who it was. Every deck on this ship had learned the sound of his footsteps, heavy and slow, like he wanted you to hear him coming and start being afraid before he even arrived. Threx was 3 meters of plated muscle, a Vornak cadet on exchange with our fleet, and in 3 weeks aboard this station, he had made it very clear what he thought of humans. "You are in my seat," he said. I was not. There were 40 empty seats in that hall. But Threx did not want a seat. He wanted an audience, and he had one, because every other Vornak cadet in the room had gone still, watching, waiting to see what would happen to the small human girl who dared to eat her breakfast in the open. I stood up anyway. Not because I was afraid of him. I was doing math, fast, the kind of math you learn quickly when you are the only human in a room full of people twice your size. 6 against 1 were bad odds even before anyone lifted a hand. He grabbed my wrist before I could step away. "So small," he said, turning my arm like he was studying a part that had failed some kind of inspection. "So fragile. And they let this fly warships." Then he twisted. I felt it before I understood it. A sharp, sudden pain that shot up through my arm and stole the breath right out of my chest. My knees wanted to buckle. I did not let them. The hall did not gasp. Vornak do not gasp. They simply watched, the way you watch a storm roll in, waiting to see how bad it gets. I did not scream. I want to be honest about the reason. It was not bravery. It was not some clever human speech I had ready in my back pocket. I did not scream because I understood, even through the pain, that screaming was exactly what he wanted. It would have been the last piece of his performance, and I was not going to hand it to him. "You might want to check the cameras," I said instead, my voice flat, my arm pulled tight against my ribs. "Command reviews footage from every mess hall on this station. I hope you thought about that before you grabbed a fellow officer." His head tilted to the side. Vornak faces are not built for confusion, but I saw something close to it cross his features. He had not expected words. He had expected tears. I was 6 weeks out of flight training, my insignia still stiff and new. Threx outranked that insignia by exactly nothing, because he was not fleet command. He was a cadet on the same exchange program as me. Same rank, same rules. He had been counting on the oldest law in the galaxy, the one that says size wins the room, and nobody argues with something that can break your arm without trying hard. He had not counted on the fact that I had actually read the regulations, because nobody ever expects the fragile species to have done her homework. Medical fixed the wrist in under 15 minutes. Human bones knit fast once you get them into a proper healing frame, faster than most people expect, and it turns out that quiet little advantage has saved more than one human career on this station. While the machine hummed around my arm, I used my good hand to file 3 things: a formal complaint, a request for the footage, and a challenge. Not a fight, a challenge, filed under a very specific and very old Vornak law that most humans never bother to learn, because most humans never expect to need it. If a Vornak injures a fellow cadet outside of a sanctioned match, the injured party has the right to call a formal rematch, and the one who caused the injury cannot refuse, without shaming himself in front of his entire chain of command. The law exists to keep their own hot-tempered recruits from tearing each other apart in hallways. Nobody expected a human to pull it out of her sleeve and use it. He could not say no. Not without looking like a coward in front of every Vornak on this station, and to his people, looking like a coward was worse than losing. Word spread fast. By the time my shift ended, half the crew already knew. Some of them looked at me like I had lost my mind. A friend of mine, a communications officer named Grace, found me in the corridor outside medical and grabbed my good arm. "You want to fight him?" she said. "After what he just did to your wrist." "I want to beat him," I said. "There's a difference." She studied my face for a long moment, like she was trying to decide if I actually believed what I had just said, or if the pain medication was doing the talking. Then she smiled, slow and a little dangerous. "All right," she said. "Then let's make sure you win." The bout was set for 2 days later, in the main training ring, the kind of space normally used for combat drills between Vornak recruits twice my size and 3 times my weight. News of the challenge had gone through the station like fire through dry grass. By the morning of the match, the observation deck above the ring was standing room only. Threx walked in already smiling, already playing to the crowd that adored him, flexing for an audience that had never once seen him lose. I walked in wearing a flight suit, not a combat uniform, and I watched the confusion ripple through the room before the fight had even begun. Because here is the part almost nobody outside my own unit understood. Under Vornak combat law, the injured party gets to choose the discipline for the rematch. Everyone in that room expected me to pick hand to hand, expected to watch a small human get folded in half for their entertainment one more time. Instead, I chose reflex piloting simulation, a discipline almost nobody on this station used anymore, because it tested something Vornak bodies were never built to be good at. Split-second reaction, rapid correction under pressure, the kind of fast, messy, adaptable thinking that gets a species onto the deck of a starship in the first place, even when that species is smaller and weaker, and breaks easier than almost anyone else in the fleet. Threx's strength meant nothing once we were both strapped into simulation pods running collision avoidance drills at speeds that would have shredded either of us in real life. What mattered inside those pods was reaction time, and reaction time was something humans had been sharpening since the very first predator chased the very first one of our ancestors across an open field. Millions of years of dodging, ducking, adjusting course half a second before disaster, all of it compressed into muscle memory that Vornak nervous systems simply were not wired to match. I beat him by 4 full seconds. In that simulation, 4 seconds is an eternity. The scoreboard on the wall did not care how tall he was, or how easily he could lift a person off the ground with one hand. It only cared about who kept their ship in one piece, and that was me. The room went quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet this time. Not the quiet before something ugly happens. The quiet of people rewriting what they thought they knew. Threx did not offer his hand afterward. Vornak custom does not allow that after a loss like his, not in front of a crowd, not from someone who had been so certain of the outcome. But when I walked past him on my way out of the ring, my wrist fully healed, my insignia still creased and new, he was the one who stepped aside to let me through. Small had never meant weak. It only meant he had been measuring the wrong thing all along. Grace was waiting for me outside the ring, arms crossed, grinning like she had just watched the best show of her life. 4 seconds, she said. You beat him by 4 whole seconds. 4 seconds is nothing, I said, though I could not keep the smile off my face either. 4 seconds, she said again, is the difference between living and not living, out here. You know that better than anyone. She was right, and we both knew it. Out among the stars, on ships built to survive things no single body was ever meant to survive, it was never really about who could lift the most weight, or who could grab the tightest hold on someone's arm. It was about who could think fastest when everything was falling apart around them, who could adjust, recalculate, and keep moving when the ground itself seemed to disappear underneath their feet. That was the thing Threx never understood about the people he liked to call fragile. We were not fragile because we were weak. We were fragile because our whole species had spent its entire history learning how to survive being fragile, learning how to think and move and adapt faster than anything that wanted to hurt us. It was the only reason we made it out of the trees, out of the forests, out of the mud, and eventually out among the stars in ships built by our own 2 hands. Threx had looked at me and seen something small and easy to break. He was not entirely wrong. My wrist had broken easily enough. But somewhere between the mess hall and the training ring, he had made the same mistake almost every predator makes about prey that survives. He had confused fragile with helpless. They are not the same thing at all, and out here, among the stars, that difference is the only one that has ever really mattered. I walked back to my quarters that night with my arms still a little stiff, my new insignia catching the light in the corridor, and for the first time since I had come aboard this station, nobody stepped in my way.